I became a superhero, and with it came the ability to hear people's true thoughts. Every time I drove back a monster, the crowds below would erupt in a deafening roar of applause. But what I heard was different. Thank God, it didn't step on my house. I can still make next month's mortgage payment. Apex needs to get out of here. The radiation he's putting out is killing my new iPhone's signal. If that beam had been a few feet to the left, my limited edition supercar would have been toast. Can't he aim better next time? Source alert. Current humanity's conviction rating is 0.01%. Host must elevate this value or the mantle of light will be revoked. I stared down at the swarm of two-faced ants below. Next time, I decided I would accidentally step right next to the things they cherished most. 1. Red alarm lights sliced through the city's night sky. The shriek of sirens blended with the screams of the crowd as a creature resembling a colossal lizard stomped its way toward the Olympus Tower in the heart of the financial district. And me? Olympus City's sworn protector, Apex, stood on a mountain peak 20 miles away, watching it all unfold with cold indifference. At my feet lay the smoldering, debris-strewn aftermath of my last battle. The corpse of the previous monster was still emitting wisps of smoke. In my ears, there was no gratitude, only an endless chorus of complaints and selfish calculations. Source alert. Current humanity's conviction rating is 0.01%. The sterile, mechanical voice echoed in my head, a needle poking at my frayed nerves. I looked down at my own massive body, a fusion of silver and crimson that was once my greatest pride. Now it felt like a heavy, cosmic joke. Becoming a titan of light was an accident I never could have imagined. One day, I was just Leo Vance, a regular office drone. I dove to save a kid from being hit by a runaway truck and got pulled under the wheels myself. In a moment before death, a warm, brilliant light enveloped me. It called itself the Source. It told me it had chosen me to be the new guardian. I accepted without hesitation. The first time I transformed, I clumsily fought off the monster. Watching the survivors below cheer for me, their faces full of awe, I was so overcome with a sense of purpose that tears nearly welled in my giant eyes. But then their real thoughts hidden beneath the cheers flooded my mind. Phew, glad the monster stayed away from our neighborhood. That was a close one. The market better not crash tomorrow. I just went all in on my portfolio. This Apex guy looks okay, I guess, but his proportions are a little weird. Are his thighs supposed to be that thick? In that instant, I felt like I'd been plunged into ice water. From that day on, every battle became a public execution of my spirit. I'd use my body to shield them from a monster's acid breath, and the people below would be thinking, don't let that poison splash on my new car. I just got ceramic coated. I'd exhaust myself luring a monster to a deserted area, and they complain. Why is he taking the long way? I'm trying to get home to watch the season finale. Can't he hurry it up? I'd fire my zenith beam, vaporizing the beast, and it would finally erupt in that thunderous applause. Awesome. He won. But the thoughts I heard were the ones the Source had just flagged for me. Mortgages, phone signals, and limited edition supercars. These were the things I was dying to protect. Boom! In the distance, the monster's tail whipped around and shattered a section of Olympus Tower's glass facade, sending a waterfall of shimmering shards to the street below. The screams grew louder. In my head, the conviction rating on my source panel remained a glaring 0.01%. It was a monument to my own naive idealism. Warning: if the host fails to elevate the conviction rating, the Source will deem the host incompatible with human civilization. The mantle of light will be revoked. Revoked? I laughed. A bitter, silent laugh. The corner of my illuminated mouth twisted into a cold smirk. Maybe I'd had it all wrong from the start. You don't earn their conviction by saving them. You earn it by letting them lose. And next time, I'd start with that guy's supercar. The one who wanted me to aim better. 2. The next monster showed up just 3 days later. This one looked like a giant stag beetle, with an armored carapace and a pair of massive, destructive pincers. It appeared coincidentally, right in the middle of the city's most opulent luxury shopping district, the Crystal Galleria. When the alarms went off, I was in my human form, Leo Vance, finishing a hot dog from a street vendor. The crowd around me descended into chaos, screaming and scattering in every direction. I calmly finished my last bite, paid the man, and strolled into a deserted alleyway. A pillar of blinding white light shot into the sky. When I arrived on the scene as Apex, the beetle monster was raising its huge pincers, poised to smash a gleaming supercar dealership. Inside, through the massive plate glass windows, a man in a loud designer shirt was frantically yelling at a security guard. "Move it! Get my Tempest out of there! That's one of only 3 in the world." I recognized him instantly. It was the same guy who'd whined about my aim. My gaze locked onto his car, a sleek jet black machine that looked like it was breaking the sound barrier while standing still. A real beauty. "Apex is here. Go, get it." The man in the designer shirt, Chadwick Kensington, shouted when he saw me. His inner voice, however, was far more specific. "Get to it already. Don't let that goddamn bug touch my dealership. My car. My baby." The monster sensed my presence, abandoned its target, and charged at me. I fell into my classic fighting stance and met it head-on. To the onlookers, our battle was an epic clash. Fists met carapace, sending sparks flying. But while I kept the monster away from the crowds, I deliberately, carefully, kept the fight contained to the area around Chadwick's dealership. Every one of my evasive maneuvers sent me grazing perilously close to the expensive storefronts. Every counterattack sent the monster's body hurtling in a very specific direction. The spectators on the ground had fled to a safe distance, though a few of the bolder ones were filming with their phones. Chadwick's thoughts grew more and more frantic. "Get away from here. Damn it. Both of you, get lost and fight somewhere else." Pretending to lose my footing, I staggered. My enormous foot came down accidentally right on top of the dealership. "No." I heard his guttural scream, a perfect echo of his silent, mental shriek. Crunch. The ground shook violently as dust and debris filled the air. I lifted my foot. Where the showroom once stood, there was now a giant footprint. On the edge of that footprint, his prized Tempest, the car he treasured more than life itself, was now a twisted pancake of scrap metal. You couldn't even tell what color it used to be. An absolute silence fell over the area. Chadwick stared at the wreckage, his legs gave out, and he crumpled to the ground. His mind was a blank void of pure, unadulterated agony. I ignored him, turned, and delivered a flying kick to the still-dazed monster, sending it airborne. I crossed my arms, and a precise zenith beam vaporized it in midair. The battle was over. I landed softly amid the ruins and looked down at the broken man. Ding! The source's notification chimed in my head. Subject Chadwick Kensington has generated extreme anguish. His obsession with material possessions has been converted into a primal fear of a higher power. Humanity's conviction rating has increased to 0.02%. I froze. It actually worked. The method was unorthodox, but the result was undeniable. Making them feel pain and fear was more effective at earning their conviction than saving their lives. Or maybe this wasn't conviction at all. Maybe it was awe. My cold, impassive eyes swept across the terrified faces on the ground. I think I've finally found the right way to do this job. 3. The fallout from crushing a multi-million-dollar supercar was bigger than I expected. The next day, it was the only thing on the news. Guardian or Destroyer. Apex battle causes unprecedented collateral damage. Who foots the bill for a superhero's mistakes? The internet, of course, was on fire. As my human self, Leo Vance, I sat in a coffee shop, scrolling through the headlines on my phone. The comments sections were a cesspool of outrage. I used to think Apex was so cool, but he's just a reckless brute. Can't he fight with a little more finesse? That was a Tempest, a $30 million car, just gone. I feel so bad for the owner. Couldn't he have been more careful? Our tax dollars built this city, not so he could use it as his personal stomp ground. They should set up an Apex Disaster Relief Fund and make him pay for the damages himself. I sipped my coffee, my expression unchanged. Fools! I protect your lives, and you whine about a few pieces of metal. The car's owner, Chadwick Kensington, was milking it for all it was worth. He was giving interviews, holding press conferences, tearfully recounting my atrocity and demanding that I, or the government, be held accountable. He didn't just destroy a car. Chadwick wailed into a news camera. He destroyed my dream. He destroyed a work of art. a treasure of civilization. I demand a public apology from Apex and full compensation for my loss. His mind, however, told a different story, one filled with venom and greed. Keep it going. Make a huge scene. The bigger, the better. Maybe I can get the government to pay for a new one, plus a little extra for emotional distress. It's not like they can do anything to Apex. I turn off my phone, disgusted by his ugly performance. But things escalated in a way I hadn't anticipated. Under immense public pressure, the government actually formed a task force, the Apex Communication and Oversight Committee, operating under the codename the Sentinel Program. Their stated goal was to work with me in a more scientific and civilized manner. A few days later, a new monster appeared. It was a winged, bird-like creature, incredibly fast, that kept dive-bombing the city's highways and electrical towers. I transformed to engage it. But this time, the moment I appeared in the sky, a shrill voice broadcast directly into my mind through some special channel. Warning! Warning! Apex, you have entered Sector A1 airspace. This is the Sentinel Program. Cease your unauthorized actions immediately. Hold your position and await our instructions. I hovered in the air, my brow furrowed. Instructions? Before I could respond, the avian monster dove again, its talons shredding a massive power substation. A cascade of sparks erupted, and the lights in half the city flickered out. Apex, do you read me? Hold your position immediately. The voice from Sentinel was laced with an unearned, bureaucratic arrogance. I ignored it and flew straight for the monster. Warning, you are disobeying a direct order. You will be held responsible for all consequences. I landed a punch that sent the monster tumbling, but I heard a chorus of gasps and angry shouts from the Sentinel channel. Who told you to engage? Its trajectory is headed straight for the new Science and Technology Center. Do you have any idea how much the equipment in that building is worth? I glanced down. The monster was indeed falling toward a futuristic glass building. Without a second thought, I changed course, dove, and positioned my body underneath the creature just before it hit the ground. Boom! The impact was immense, causing the timer on my chest to flash for a moment. The tech center is safe. Thank God. That was too close. All my project data is in there. I heard the relieved thoughts of the scientists on the ground. The Sentinel voice came through again, this time with a mix of relief and condescension. Good. You finally did something right. Now, follow our instructions. Lure it to the abandoned industrial park in the eastern suburbs. We've already cleared the area. I shoved the monster off me as it shrieked and lunged again. Acknowledge Apex. Do you copy? Copy? I let out another cold, silent laugh. I grabbed the monster by its wing, ignored the so-called instructions, and violently flung it in the opposite direction, toward Emerald Hills, the wealthiest district in the entire city. What are you doing? Are you insane? Stop. The voice from Sentinel was now screaming in pure panic. I wasn't insane. I just suddenly realized that this committee was the perfect tool, a tool that would let me be careless with complete and total justification. 4. Boom! The monster's enormous body crashed precisely through the roof of a sprawling villa. I recognized it from a magazine, the mansion of some tech mogul famous for the absurd infinity pool on its roof. The pool is gone now. You maniac! You absolute maniac! On the Sentinel channel, a man's voice was distorted with rage and fear. Do you know what you just destroyed? That's Mr. Sterling's house. My mind reading picked up his true thoughts instantly. It's over. Sterling just promised a $50 million grant to the Sentinel program yesterday. That money is gone. I see. So the committee was just another group of opportunistic suits try to use my name to advance their own careers and line their pockets. Ignoring his roars, I flew toward the half-collapsed mansion and re-engaged the monster. Crack! I chopped at the monster's back. It recoiled in pain, its body swinging sideways and demolishing the garden of the neighboring estate. Ornate statues and fountains were reduced to rubble in an instant. Stop! I order you to stop! The voice from Sentinel shrieked. Of course, I didn't stop. I began a magnificent performance. Sometimes, I'd use too much force, sending the monster rolling through the exclusive neighborhood like a bowling ball. Other times, I'd be too slow to dodge, getting knocked back by the monster and flattening an acre of priceless, manicured landscaping. Emerald Hills was thrown into chaos. The sounds of destruction were punctuated by the wails of the fabulously wealthy. These titans of industry, who were used to bending the world to their will, could only watch as their multi-million-dollar homes were turned into piles of debris by what they saw as a battle between gods. Their thoughts shifted from fury and cursing to terror and despair. My art collection, my bottle of Screaming Eagle Cabernet. It's gone. It's all gone. My home. Please, just go away. Fight anywhere but here. Please. The Sentinel channel had devolved into pandemonium. We have to make him stop. Activate the emergency protocol. Hit him with the EMP. We can't. The range is too close. It would take down the power grid for the entire city. Then get him to lure the monster away. Tell him to take it to the suburbs. An exasperated voice screamed back. We've been telling him that for 10 minutes. He isn't listening. While they squabbled, I decided I'd had enough fun. I saw my opening, sent the monster flying high into the air with a powerful kick, and finished it with a blast from my zenith beam. The battle was over. I stood in the center of the devastated neighborhood. At least 8 mansions were now uninhabitable ruins. The air smelled of dust and burning money. I looked down upon the wreckage I had wrought. Ding! The familiar and now welcome chime echoed in my mind. Widespread anguish and terror detected. Humanity's obsession with material possessions is collapsing. Humanity's conviction rating has increased to 0. 8%, spectacularly effective. I was about to leave when a new voice, this one terrifyingly calm, came over the Sentinel channel. Apex, this is Dr. Evelyn Reed, director of the Sentinel program. The name made me pause. Evelyn Reed, my ex-girlfriend, the one who had dumped me without a second thought for her career, for what she called her higher purpose. Your actions today have severely crossed the line. Her voice cut through the channel, as cold and clinical as a scalpel. You've destroyed over $500 million in private property and have caused a significant public panic. I am now ordering you to land, revert to your human form, and surrender for questioning. Revert to my human form? I almost laughed out loud. Who the hell did she think she was? Leo Vance. Predictable as ever. Still a creature of pure instinct and emotion. This is perfect, though. I can use this. I'll break him. Then I'll control him. The power of the source must be made to serve a rational purpose. My purpose? Hearing her thoughts, so familiar and yet so alien, the light in my eyes grew cold. So she knew. Of course she knew. My identity as Leo Vance was probably the first thing she looked up when she took the job. She wanted to control me, just like she had tried to control my life, my future, my entire being when we were together. I will not repeat myself. Land and revert. Now, Evelyn commanded, her voice edged with impatience. I slowly turned, my massive, compound eyes facing the direction of her command center. I didn't land. Instead, I began to slowly rise into the air. Then, in front of the entire city, I raised my middle finger to the Sentinel program's headquarters. The gesture was a bit awkward for a being of my size, but I was confident she'd get the message. With that, I turned and streaked across the sky, disappearing in a flash of light, leaving an entire city in stunned silence. 5. Back in my small, rented apartment, I shed my human disguise. The identity of Leo Vance was compromised. Evelyn's appearance was a complication I hadn't foreseen. She was far more dangerous than the whining billionaires and the sensationalist media. She knew me, or at least she knew the old me. The naive, impulsive fool who thought selfless sacrifice was all it took to make a difference. Ding! The source panel materialized in my mind. Warning! Host actions have triggered a high-level alert among human leadership. The Sentinel program has elevated the host's threat level to maximum. Warning! Deployment of strategic, high-yield weaponry detected. Target is locked onto the host's energy signature. I looked out the window. The city skyline was as brilliant as ever, but I could now see the invisible data streams crisscrossing the air, a digital net closing in around me. Evelyn worked fast. She wanted to force me out of hiding. The next day, the news was a 24/7 loop of my crimes. The flattened supercar, the ruined mansions, and my final, defiant gesture were edited into a slick, terrifying highlight reel. Evelyn appeared on screen as the face of the Sentinel program. She wore a crisp, tailored suit, her expression stern, her eyes sharp. We acknowledge Apex's contributions in the fight against monstrous threats. But that cannot be an excuse for his reckless destruction and his blatant disregard for established protocols. He has transitioned from a guardian into an unpredictable and dangerous variable. Effective immediately, we are initiating Project Skyfall. We will use any and all means necessary to establish a mandatory dialogue with Apex. I am issuing a final ultimatum to this Titan of Light. Cooperate with us, or you will be classified alongside the monsters as this city's #1 public enemy. Her speech was powerful, dripping with righteous conviction. But I heard her true thoughts. You can't run, Leo. The more you resist, the more the public will side with me. In the end, you'll come crawling back to me like a dog. I turned off the TV. Crawl back to her? She thought far too highly of herself. But she had succeeded. Public opinion swung completely to her side. People now feared me, seeing me as a threat as great as the monsters themselves. This Apex guy is terrifying. He's completely unstable. He trashed Emerald Hills today. What if he trashes my neighborhood tomorrow? I support Director Reed. He needs to be put on a leash. Who does he think he is? A god? He has no right to do whatever he wants in our city. My conviction rating began to slowly tick downward. From 0, 8%, it fell to 0, 75%, then 0, 7%. It seemed the awe inspired by fear had a short shelf life. As soon as people felt there was a power that could challenge me, that awe curdled into hostility. I needed a new catalyst, something that would shut them all up for good. That opportunity came sooner than I expected. This time, it wasn't one monster. It was three. Three smaller, but incredibly agile, mantis-like creatures attacked the city simultaneously from 3 different directions. The Air Force scrambled their jets, but their missiles were ineffective against such nimble targets and ended up causing more collateral damage. The city was thrown into a level of chaos it had never experienced before. At the Sentinel Command Center, Evelyn Reed's face must have been a mask of horror. I could almost feel her desperation from miles away. Requesting support from Apex. He's not responding. Director, we're losing containment. The perimeter in Sector A has been breached. Sector C is compromised, too. The monsters are heading for the residential zones. I sat on a couch in my apartment, listening to the symphony of sirens and screams. I was waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for them to feel true, absolute despair. Finally, Evelyn's voice, stripped of its composure, echoed from every emergency broadcast speaker in the city. It was trembling, but loud and clear. Apex, now, I know you can hear me. I apologize for my previous actions and statements. Please, I'm begging you, help us. The city needs you. She had finally abandoned her arrogant pride. Faced with the deaths of countless citizens, her ambition, her need for control, all of it became worthless. If you'll just help, I'll agree to any terms. Any at all. I heard her thoughts, a desperate prayer of surrender. The time was right. I stood up, walked to the window, and amid the fires raging across my city, I became light. 6. When I reappeared in my Titan form, the city was a sea of fire. The 3 monsters were rampaging unchecked, tearing the military's defensive lines to shreds. The screams of the dying and the terrified had become the city's heartbeat. Help! Somebody save us! Apex! Where is Apex? Is this it? Are we going to die? Finally, faced with their own mortality, they stopped worrying about their houses and their cars. He's here. Apex is here. Someone spotted me first, their voice choked with ecstatic relief. In an instant, every eye, every camera was fixed on me. I ignored their cheers. I ignored Evelyn's frantic calls on the private channel. My eyes locked onto the 3 monsters. Then, I did something no one could have possibly anticipated. I didn't charge at any of them. Instead, I flew to the top of the tallest building in the city, the still intact Olympus Tower, and slowly sat down. I crossed one leg over the other, folded my arms across my chest, and settled in to watch the show. An eerie silence fell over the entire city. Everyone was stunned. Fighter jets streaked past me, the pilots gawking in disbelief. On the Sentinel channel, Evelyn's voice went from urgent to utterly baffled. Now, what are you doing? What was I doing? I was enjoying the view of their despair. One of the mantis monsters tore through the wall of a large supermarket. I could hear the screams from within. I didn't move. Another monster's scythe-like arms swept across a downtown street, sending a dozen cars flying through the air to explode in fiery blossoms. I merely shifted into a more comfortable position. You bastard! Evelyn finally shrieked, all pretense of professionalism gone. What in God's name do you want? Those are innocent people down there. You want revenge? You want to humiliate me? Fine. You win. Just do something. I'll give you whatever you want. Her thoughts were a torrent of shame and fury, but beneath it all was a terrifying sense of powerlessness. What did I want? I slowly raised my hand and, pointing it at her command center, curled my finger in a come here gesture. The meaning was unmistakable. You wanted to communicate. You wanted to put me on a leash? Here's your chance. Come to me. And beg. Evelyn went silent. Her subordinates were frantically shouting in the background. Director, we can't wait any longer. The casualties are going to be catastrophic. After a few seconds that felt like an eternity, a small VTOL aircraft lifted off from the roof of the command center and flew hesitantly toward my position. The aircraft hovered in front of my face, and the side door slid open. Evelyn stood there, still in her suit, but her hair was a mess, her face smeared with soot and sweat. She looked up at me, the man she'd once casually discarded. Now a giant, she was forced to petition. Her eyes were a storm of conflicting emotions: anger, regret, humiliation, and a sliver of fear. I'm here, she said, her voice hoarse. State your terms. My terms? I held up my hand, pointing first to the carnage below. Then I pointed at her, and then I made a clear, unmistakable gesture of someone getting down on their knees. I want you, Dr. Evelyn Reed, to kneel before the entire city and beg me to save you. 7. The color drained from Evelyn's face. She bit her lip so hard I was surprised it didn't bleed, her body trembling with humiliation. You can't be serious. She squeezed the words out through clenched teeth. Make me kneel? Never. I, Evelyn Reed, have never begged for anything in my life. Her pride, as always, was her default setting. I retracted my hand and watched her, my posture relaxed, as the destruction below escalated. The side of an apartment building exploded, engulfed in a ball of fire. I could hear the muffled, desperate screams from inside. Evelyn flinched as if she'd been struck. Her eyes darted between me and the inferno on the ground, her internal battle raging. Every second she hesitated, more people died. The power to end it all rested on a single choice. On the channel, her subordinates were now openly weeping. Director, please, just do what he says. We're at our breaking point. Finally, Evelyn closed her eyes, and 2 tears cut clean paths through the grime on her cheeks. When she opened them again, her pride was shattered, replaced by an infinite, weary sorrow. She spoke into her comms unit, using every ounce of her remaining strength to issue one last, clear command. All media outlets, focus your cameras on me. I'm going live to the entire city. With that, she pushed past her aide and, in the small, open doorway of the aircraft, under the gaze of millions, she slowly, deliberately bent her knees. Thump! A soft sound. The ever-arrogant Evelyn Reed, the woman who valued her dignity above all else, was kneeling. To me, I, Evelyn Reed, on behalf of the Sentinel program and on behalf of this entire city. Her voice, amplified by every speaker, broadcast to every corner of the metropolis, trembled with an unconcealable sob. I am begging you to save us. At that moment, the city fell silent. Everyone who was running, screaming, or praying stopped and looked up at the unbelievable scene unfolding on the giant screens and in the sky. For the first time, their thoughts began to harmonize. Oh my God, Director Reed, she's Apex. He really pushed us this far. But if we had just been grateful from the start, would any of this have happened? We were wrong. God, we were so wrong. A tidal wave of guilt, regret, and the purest instinct for survival washed over the city and flooded my senses. Ding. Collective remorse and awe generated by human civilization. Humanity's conviction rating is surging. 5%, 15%, 30%. Warning. Energy overload. The core of light is undergoing sublimation. An unprecedented power erupted from within me. The silver patterns on my body began to glow with a brilliant gold light. I slowly stood, towering over the kneeling Evelyn, towering over the wounded city below. I didn't spare her another glance. The show was just beginning. My form vanished from the rooftop. An instant later, I reappeared behind one of the mantis monsters, a golden handblade slicing cleanly through its neck. Its giant head flew into the air. Before the other two could even react, my form flickered again. Two beams of golden light, like swords of judgment, shot out and pierced their chests. 3 seconds. It took only 3 seconds. The three monsters that had brought the city to its knees were reduced to cosmic dust. I hovered in the sky, bathed in a golden aura, a true god among mortals. On the ground, the survivors erupted in a cheer more genuine and powerful than any that had come before. This time, there were no thoughts of mortgages or supercars or phone signals. There was only pure, unadulterated gratitude and awe. Ding. Humanity's conviction. 42. 1%. Host mantle of light is secure. New achievement unlocked. Tamer of hubris. Host's preceding actions have generated significant controversy. System is re-evaluating the mantle of light qualification parameters. Re-evaluating. A line of red text I'd never seen before flashed on my internal display. Re-evaluation complete. Parameters found to be flawed. Humanity's conviction is not the sole criterion. Initiating deep protocol. Priority mission. Purge the shadow infiltrator. Before I could even process what that meant, a beam of black and violet light shot up from the ground, striking the timer on my chest with pinpoint accuracy. Beep, beep, beep. The alarm blared as my energy began to drain at a terrifying rate. Stunned, I looked down toward the source of the blast. It came from the ruins of the Sentinel Command Tower where Evelyn had just landed. Amid the rubble, a figure in a black trench coat was slowly getting to his feet. It wasn't Evelyn. It was a man I had never seen before, a strange smile playing on his lips. In his hand, he held a black, rod-like object, a dark version of my own transformation conduit. And his thoughts, I couldn't hear them at all. System alert. Energy signature of identical origin, but opposite polarity detected. Shadow infiltrator has revealed itself. Mission objective. Purge the shadow infiltrator. Target. Unidentified male. I finally understood. My enemy was never just the monsters, or even the darkness in humanity's heart. It was a counterpart, one who had been lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The man looked up, his smile widening with amusement. He raised the black conduit, and a pillar of violet-black light engulfed him. When the light faded, a new titan stood where he had been. It was entirely black, its eyes glowing with a malevolent red light. Its silhouette, its armor, even the patterns on its body, were a chilling mirror of my own. "Hello there, hero," the Dark Titan's voice echoed directly in my mind, dripping with sarcasm. "You can call me Void." On the ground, the crowd, still reeling from their salvation, was thrown into a fresh panic by this new, terrifying development. What? What is that? Another one? A black apex. It attacked our hero. Evelyn, who had been thrown from the aircraft by the blast, stared in utter shock. Her thoughts were a chaotic mess of fear. How was this possible? What did he get in? My security protocols. Surprised, Void seemed to read my mind. Did you really think that just because the source chose you, you were the only one? He flexed his hands, producing a sound like cracking bone. The source chose light. It stands to reason something else would choose the dark. The timer on my chest flashed faster. That last attack wasn't just powerful. It was laced with a corrosive energy that was actively eating away at my own light, preventing me from healing. You think you've won? You think you've tamed these little ants? Void let out a low, rumbling laugh. No, you just made them better liars. They're grateful now out of fear. Once the crisis is over, they'll hate and distrust you more than ever before. But I can give them everything they've ever wanted. Void spread his arms, and a wave of dark violet energy pulsed outward, blanketing the entire city. The impossible happened. The buildings I had damaged, the cars that had been crushed, they began to repair themselves at a visible rate. Chadwick Kensington's Tempest, the one I'd turned into a metal pancake, reformed, its sleek lines returning, its paint job gleaming as if it had just rolled off the factory floor. The mansions in Emerald Hills rebuilt themselves, brick by brick, until they were pristine. In a matter of minutes, the entire city was restored. It looked even better than before. Everyone was speechless. Is this a miracle? He fixed the city. Void looked down, pleased by their awestruck expressions. His voice was a seductive whisper that carried across the city. You see, this is what they need. Not destruction, but restoration. Not punishment, but reward. I can protect their property, satisfy their desires, and let them live in perpetual comfort and ease. And all I ask for in return is a little worship. His words were a devil's bargain, striking at the most vulnerable, most greedy parts of the human heart. I saw Chadwick Kensington run to his restored car and kiss its hood. I heard the billionaires in Emerald Hills letting out sighs of profound relief. It's back. My house is back. This black titan is the real savior. That's right. The other one just breaks things. This one actually cares about us. The conviction rating, which had soared to 42%, began to plummet. 40%, 30%, 10%. Finally, it bottomed out, even lower than where I started. 0.005%. And a new metric appeared on my source panel. Dark devotion, 78%. I felt the power draining out of me, while across from me, Void's presence grew stronger. He was feeding on the city's greed, converting their desire into his own power. Do you understand now? Void strode toward me, each step shaking the very air. Your path of light is a struggle against the current. It is painful. My darkness simply goes with the flow. Everyone is happy. This world has no need for a hero like you. He raised his hand, a sphere of violet-black energy coalescing in his palm. Now die, you obsolete failure. I struggled to fight back, but my body felt like it was encased in lead. The power of the source, starved by humanity's betrayal, had dwindled to almost nothing. Just as the sphere of dark energy was about to hit me, a small figure darted out from the crowd below, spreading his arms wide to shield me. It was a boy no older than 7 or 8. "Don't you hurt Apex," he shouted, his young voice cracking with effort. I recognized him. He was the boy I'd seen after my very first battle, the one who had waved at me enthusiastically while everyone else was lost in their own selfish relief. His thoughts were the only clear stream in this polluted ocean of self-interest. Apex is a hero. He's just tired. You can't do this to him. Void paused, genuinely surprised. Oh, we have a stray. He looked at the child with amusement. Little one, do you have any idea how many homes your hero destroyed? I'm the one who fixed everything. You're lying. The boy's face flushed red. You brought the monsters here. I saw it. Before you showed up, the monsters weren't acting that crazy. The boy's words struck me like a bolt of lightning. I replayed the last battle in my mind. The 3 Mantis monsters. Their movements had been different from all the others. It was almost like they were acting. They had inflicted damage with surgical precision, creating just enough chaos to force Evelyn to her knees, to elevate me to the status of a god, only to tear me down at my moment of triumph. It was all a setup, a massive, intricate, and malicious trap, designed for me from the very beginning. 9. I see now. My voice was a low rumble that echoed across the silent city. I looked at Void, the light in my eyes slowly rekindling. You lured the monsters. You orchestrated the chaos. Even Evelyn's Sentinel program was likely compromised by you from the start. You staged this entire elaborate drama for one purpose: to steal my light. The smile vanished from Void's face, replaced by a cold fury at being exposed. So what if you know? He sneered. What can you do? Look down at your precious humans. Who have they chosen? You or me? The truth, he spat, is worthless to them. He was right. On the ground. After a brief moment of confusion, the crowd settled. What is that little brat talking about? He's just trying to get attention. The Dark Apex fixed our homes. He's a good guy here. The thoughts were like daggers, but this time they didn't hurt. Instead, I felt a strange sense of peace. I looked down at the boy who still stood before me, a tiny shield against the world. His mother ran out from the crowd and hugged him, her face a mask of terror, but she didn't pull him away. I heard her thought, "Sam, my brave boy, you're doing the right thing. We can't lose our souls." I smiled, a real smile, so there was still good in them, just not very much. So little, in fact, that it was almost drowned out. But if even one spark remained, if there was just one glimmer of light, then it was worth protecting. "You're wrong," I said to Void, slowly raising my arms into a fighting stance. I was never fighting for them. I was fighting for what's in them, the part of them that can be lost, but can never be truly extinguished. Their humanity, even if it's only 0.01%. As I spoke, the boy Sam pulled something from his pocket. It was a small, lopsided figure of Apex, folded from colored paper. He held it up high and shouted with all his might, "Go, Apex, go!" Ding! Heart of purest conviction detected. Humanity's conviction rating parameters have been revised. Weighting adjusted. The conviction of one pure heart is equivalent to the conviction of 1 million mundane hearts. Current humanity's conviction rating, 99.9%. Boom! Golden light erupted from my body like a nuclear detonation. My injuries vanished. The alarm on my chest ceased, replaced by a triumphant anthem. My body grew even larger, and the golden patterns on my armor became dazzlingly bright, as if forged from the heart of the sun itself. Shining form? No. Impossible! Void screamed, stumbling back from the sheer force of my radiant power. What is this? How? He couldn't understand. He didn't know that hope, in its purest form, is a far greater power than greed. I didn't answer him. I raised my hand, and particles of golden light coalesced into a burning sword of pure energy. "Now," I said, my voice resonating with power. "It's my turn." My body became a golden blur, appearing instantly in front of Void. He frantically raised his arms to block. Clang! My light saber crashed against his dark arm blades, sending a blinding shower of sparks into the air. The force of the blow sent him hurtling backward into the side of Olympus Tower. "It's over." I gave him no time to recover. I raised my sword high, gathering all the light in the universe into its blade. The sky itself seemed to crack open as pure radiance poured down, fueling my attack. Shining, zenith blade. I swung down. A blade of golden light, vast enough to slice the horizon in two, descended upon the dark titan. No! In a final, desperate scream, Void was utterly consumed by the golden light, purified into nothingness, not even leaving dust behind. The world was quiet once more. 10. I released my transformation, descending slowly from the sky. The golden particles of light dissipated, and I landed as Leo Vance in front of Sam and his mother. The surrounding crowd stared at me, their faces a mixture of awe, fear, shame, and confusion. They had witnessed a miracle and then the destruction of that miracle. The being who had given them back their worldly possessions had been annihilated by me, the destroyer, who had ultimately saved their lives. The cognitive dissonance left them stunned and silent. "Thank you." Sam's mother took her son's hand and bowed deeply to me. Sam copied her, bending at the waist with all his might. "Thank you, Apex Man," he said, looking up, his eyes shining. I looked at him, and the ice that had encased my heart for so long finally began to thaw. I raised my hand to pat his head, a simple, human gesture I hadn't felt worthy of in a long time. But I stopped myself. I turned and looked at Evelyn. She was still slumped on the ground, all the energy and fight gone from her, a hollowed-out shell of the woman she used to be. Her meticulous plans, her arrogant need for control, had been exposed as a pathetic farce in a war between gods and demons. I walked over to her. "Why?" I asked, my voice hoarse. She looked up, a bitter smile on her face. "Why? Don't you get it, Leo? The power of the source is too much for any one person to have. It's too dangerous. It has to be governed by rules, by a system. So you invited the wolf into the sheepfold?" "I didn't know he was Void," she retorted, a flash of her old fire returning. "He came to us as a security consultant, an expert in unconventional power sources. He had flawless credentials, theories we couldn't debunk, and resources we couldn't refuse. He convinced the entire committee he had a way to manage you, to make your power safe and controllable. I looked at her coldly. So, in the end, you just didn't trust me. Evelyn's lips parted, but no words came out. She couldn't deny it. She had never trusted me, not as her boyfriend, and not as Apex. I turned away from her, my gaze sweeping across the familiar, yet alien, landscape of my city. Source alert. Shadow Infiltrator has been purged. Host authority has been elevated. New function unlocked. World Choice Protocol. World Choice Protocol. The host may choose to continue protecting the current reality or relinquish this world and travel to a parallel universe in need of the light. I stare at the new option in my mind, silent. Leave? Go to a world that might be more deserving? A world that wouldn't make me question the very nature of my mission? My eyes fell on Sam again. He was hiding behind his mother's leg, peeking out at me, his face filled with pure, simple admiration. And in that moment, I understood. This world was full of selfishness, greed, and ignorance. It was a mess, but also had this. It had Sam. It had his mother. It had a tiny, fragile spark of goodness that refused to be extinguished. And maybe, just maybe, protecting that 1 in a million spark was worth all the trouble. I focused my will. Continue protection. Then, as the city watched, I let the light surround me one more time, rising into the sky not as a weapon, not as a threat, but as a promise.